Welcome to Lose the Veil. My name is Leslie Brown, and I'm your host for this podcast. And I'm here with a panel of amazing women. That's Stephanie, Brianda, Jean, and Bonnie. And together, we take you on a journey to explore and cultivate a deeper connection to our divinity, the divine feminine, and our God self. We want you to discover how you can tap into your source and absolutely love that part of yourself. And we're going to begin this series by defining the term divine feminine and looking at cultures, old and new, to see where she exists and where she doesn't exist. Each week, one member of the panel will discuss a topic, and each member will have a chance to respond. So, without further ado, I am going to turn this podcast over to our first member as we begin our journey.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Araujo. I also go by Soli. And a little bit about myself, I am a writer, an educator, and performer from Washington Heights, New York. Whoop, whoop. I have a passion for exploring and learning all parts of the self for the purpose of embodying my wholeness and encouraging others, especially the youth, to do the same. My research, well, the little bit of research that I did do, was on the divine feminine. I'm going to give a brief intro on that. The divine feminine is the spiritual concept that there exists a feminine counterpart to the patriarchal and masculine worship structures that have long dominated organized religion. Divine feminine is the powerful energy that, along with divine masculine energy, is the basis for creation. It essentially makes up half of our consciousness. Feminine energy is ancient, and according to Sadhguru, its nature is all-embracing. It naturally exists in all living things and has nothing to do with gender identity. In nature, unlike with many humans, the feminine is perfectly balanced and in harmony with the masculine. Other names for the divine feminine are Shakti, Yin energy, Kali, Gaia, and lunar energy. It is also symbolically connected with the elements of water, with qualities like flow and receptivity, and the element of fire, with qualities such as power and creative potential. Other associations linked to the divine feminine are beauty, creativity, expressing, nurturing, goddess, sensuality, adaptability, inspiration, mothering, affection, attraction, abundance, trust, being in rhythm with nature's cycles, strong connection to your body and intuition, the state of being versus doing, going inward, being in the earth, and love. According to Deepak Chopra, on a deeper level, the divine feminine represents certain values, like the attributes just listed, that human beings have long cherished. Half of human nature is represented by the feminine in both sexes. I just want to end with a quote from Deepak, which says, "It is up to us individually to look inside and see where we can allow feminine qualities to correct a personal imbalance. They need to be present in everyone's life, whether you are a man or woman, and every child needs to be exposed to them." Mm-hmm. So I have some questions that I want to pose to all of you. When did you first hear about the divine feminine?
Not that long ago for me. It wasn't something that I grew up hearing, and I think it was actually by a tarot reader that I learned about the concept of divine feminine and divine masculine a few years ago.
Yeah, same. I mean, well, for me, I want to say it was kind of like, I feel like I came across a lot of different things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you heard of spirit science?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love that show.
Okay, Bonnie, you haven't heard of it. Look it up. It's great because it's animated and I'm really into animation.
They just have a new one out. Actually, I just saw it the other day.
Spirit Science.
Spirit Science, talking about tantric.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Where's this
yeah.
at? On YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube. And they also have a website where they have a whole lot more information.
Oh,
But it
tons of
started off on
information,
YouTube, and it was like these little animated shorts about, you know,
All
what
this
it
stuff.
is, right? Like
Mhm.
all these spiritual things and connecting it, you know, grounding it in science, which I thought was really dope. And so around that time, I think my friend introduced me to that around 2012. And so that, I think that was probably one of the first times, because there's an episode that talks about feminine and masculine energy.
Mhm.
And so that was the first time it was ever presented to me in a way that I hadn't really considered it before, where it wasn't about male or female, man, woman, but it was more about, you know, these qualities and
Mhm.
and you know, like the yin and yang and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that was more than just a few years ago. 2012 was almost 10 years ago. But that was the first time. And then from there I just kept hearing more and more, you know.
What's
Diving
interesting
deeper.
for me, the first time I heard it was back in 1994, but I didn't hear it in terms of feminine. But what I did hear was the yin and the yang, because that's when I went to school to become a massage therapist. So knowing that there was this one energy and another energy was very interesting to me, and it made a lot of sense. But when I first heard about the divine feminine and the goddess, I did a workshop that was all about the goddess
Nice.
and all her attributes. And it was just like the most amazing workshop that I had ever been to. And it kind of just opened my eyes to how everything in nature has to come through a womb. And every tree has to come through this earth that's dark and a canal, and just amazing stuff.
Mhm.
So it really gave me a different spin on me, you know, like as a woman.
Word.
Yeah.
Well,
Mine's
mine's a little different. For me, it was never about the divine feminine, because I never heard that until more recently in my life. Especially, we as a collective have been talking about it. But back in the day, you know, when they would have certain movies with Hercules and all those people, you know, and they would talk about the different goddesses and stuff like that. And then later, when I went to college, I took literature, and we talked about the different gods and goddesses. I just saw them in that aspect. I didn't quite get the idea of the different attributes associated with them, but at least it was presented in such a way that on one side there was a god and at least there was a goddess. So it did give some, recognition to the feminine.
Feminine.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that was what it was for me.
Yeah.
And I would agree with Jean. I mean, inside of us actually taking this on as a conversation, I didn't really look at the divine feminine. And I mean, when I was little, I wanted to be a nun. And really, there was just God, and God was a man.
Mhm.
And even at that time, in my like framework, there wasn't even goddess.
Mm, mm.
So it's been very eye-opening to me to be in this conversation, expanding what we've been talking about.
So a follow-up question to that would be, was it a part of your upbringing? Right? So I think most of us can agree that it wasn't.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I think it's a resounding no. But how do you feel about it now, about the concept? Like, do you, like, I don't know, for me, I feel like I'm still, even though it was introduced to me almost 10 years ago, I feel like it's now that it's becoming more clear to me, or more something that, like, that I can break down and understand for myself, and not just, you know, like this theory that's far away, like, oh, the divine feminine, but something that I could embody. I think that's something that's happening now. So it's still new to me in that sense, but I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's like there's something like it's unreachable.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is actually what I'm taking apart for myself, that like if there's something that's in me that's divine, and if I'm feminine, why is it unreachable?
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's a new concept for me, divine feminine. Um, I embrace it because as a child, I was always saying, how come there's only a father God and there ain't no mother God nowhere, you know? So this kind of like confirms for me through these other religions that, other people did acknowledge that aspect of God, So, but it's still, I can get down with, with the recognition of it, but still I would just rather just say Father, Mother, God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Father, Mother, God.
It's so interesting. I'm trying to think how I feel about it now, but when I was talking before, it just opened my eyes to this place that there's a sacredness that comes with us. That was never really given to us as babies or women or girls, this idea that we've created everything on some levels. There's nothing on this planet that is alive that did not come through that. And so how I feel about it now, I think that's awesome. Now, do I embrace every aspect of it? I don't know that I have integrated all of that information.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I don't think my body has integrated all of that. I don't think my mind, but the possibility of it and the profoundness of it is just profound to me. That, how could they leave us out of everything that exists?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, how could they do that?
And then it's also twofold, right? Because it's like in the intro that I gave, it was talking about how it has nothing to do with gender, But then at the same time, to be a woman, raised in this world, it's like embracing the divine feminine as a woman, and then just embracing the divine feminine as a person, regardless of whatever gender identity identifier you use. So it's like twofold, right? Because I think there's still something to be said about identifying as a woman and embracing the divine feminine, right? Like, because it was something that you think that we would be taught, but it was like we were only taught on like a half scale, like like only not not to the full extent. Exactly. Like, okay, yeah, mothering and nurturing, but like the expansiveness of that is something that wasn't introduced to us as a natural thing, and then there's a lot more that I can get into, but there's
a long way back though. Yeah, because your parents only give you what they got.
Exactly.
They can't give you any more than that.
Exactly.
We're gonna change that.
That's what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, it's really deep when you get into gender. Gender, is that a gender identifier?
Exactly. What?
Go ahead.
What are you saying? That is that a gender? Are you asking, is that a gender identifier?
Like, if we were to say that it is,
right?
Then what is that divine feminine? What does that even mean now?
No, I think I go along with what she said earlier. It's not a gender thing. It's just composed of certain qualities that were kind of listed in the very beginning of your discussion.
And then it's qualities that
could be either in the man or the woman.
Yeah.
Right. But the other thing about this also is that because the divine feminine was equated with certain things, it didn't, like creativity or nurturing, those are qualities that a lot of men don't have. And they not that it doesn't come naturally to them, but they were trained otherwise. So you're right, that aspect of themselves have been washed away just as much as it has the feminine. So that's, to me is where a lot of all this stuff's got to
But I was going to say, it seems like to me what I see now is that men are taking on more of those
Yes.
kind of roles
Yeah.
because I see the fathers with the kids taking
Mhm.
them to school in the playground with them, So I think it's getting better for them nowadays than it was in the past.
Yeah.
We're born into this conversation of whether you're divine feminine or divine masculine.
Mm.
And from there, there's what begins to be nurtured in divine feminine. And like Leslie said, dismissed or diminished or unlearned if you're divine masculine. So it's like not, in my view, that it's not there. It's just what gets nurtured
Mm-hmm.
in a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And when they choose to not be that gender
Mm-hmm.
or choose what is natural for them expressed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it may not look like what their physicalness is,
Mm-hmm.
then people have an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true.
But that
Yeah.
was real for them the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is that you can identify as neither, right? Like neither man or woman,
Mhm.
and then still be wholly divine feminine and masculine, right?
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's a distinction that needs to be made going forward, but from young, not from like when now that we're all adults and we're getting it now, like
Yeah.
you know, for the children to know that like it's not about all this boy girl stuff, that you've been taught.
And
Yeah.
it's so serious.
And some of them know that though, because I work with kids and I have kids that have told me like, oh my, my pronouns are they, them, or, like there are kids, kids are way more aware now than, I know that when I was their age than we were,
Yeah.
so
I
that's
guess we're opening up a little bit here and there to it more than we have in the past,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
so they're having the opportunity to get it young, whereas when I was coming along, that was not the case.
Mm-hmm. So I have another question.
Mhm.
I feel like we've kind of touched on this though. As a female, do you feel any acknowledgement of your importance in the history of religion?
Well,
That's a deep question.
Okay. Well.
You do, Jean?
Well, of course, I do. In the Bible, I mean, there's mention of women. I mean, they don't go so far as to call them divine feminine, but there are major characters in the Bible that are women that played major roles. I mean, look at Mary Magdalene. She was the only female disciple. She was the first one to see Jesus when he resurrected. So that's something in and of itself.
Mhm.
There are a few others that I remember. I don't remember all their roles, but there's a mention of Ruth in the Bible, Esther, and there's a woman named Deborah. She was kind of like taking on a role of a leader during wartime with the Jews. She was the one that helped them conquer who they were fighting. So I mean, there were women in the Bible. So it wasn't like we didn't have a little honorable mention here and there.
Honorable mention.
And we can't forget Mary.
Oh yeah.
Mother Mary.
Number one. Dumb dada.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The Virgin Mary.
The Virgin.
That's what they call her,
Yeah.
It
The
was
Virgin Mary. That's what they call her.
Yeah. It's the Immaculate Conception.
Yeah. How about
I
that?
struggle with that one. Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people still struggle with that one. Is that true or what?
Right.
Is that part of our figment of imagination? What is it?
Well, how about you other ladies? Don't you all have any?
I feel I need to be educated, and that's why I really wanted to take on looking in this conversation, because I don't know much about other religions. I just know what little Catholic background I've got, which I ran away from and don't, know that much. I didn't learn very well. But yeah, I just find it quite interesting. A lot of what women have gone through in history and what they have also contributed and were acknowledged for. And I recently watched this documentary and I was just laughing because it was on menstruation.
Menstruation?
Yes. And that women, when they were trying to go to college, one of the thoughts was that they couldn't go to college because they wouldn't be able to focus fully because they menstruated during the month.
Wow. That's
they would
deep.
That's
need,
not far-fetched because I remember stuff like that.
Yeah,
they would
I
need
didn't know
to,
that.
they wouldn't be able to focus during that time because they were going through that.
That's deep.
Oh, you hear that? Oh, don't pay her no mind. She's on her period. That kind of nonsense.
True.
Like you can't function.
Yeah. Wow.
Someone had to write a paper about legitimately scientifically that menstruation is not scientifically a block to a woman focusing. So I had to write a paper.
Well, I mean, we have to admit the hormones do get a little wacky.
They do.
Yeah, but
we have phases. There's 4 of them.
Yeah, but you know what? I think even some of that was a little bit contrived.
Yes,
I think, and I say that because I think if we were fed properly and not the garbage from the very first day of our lives, we wouldn't be going through some of that stuff.
Right.
Because so even that's not a natural way for women to be. We're naturally okay. But if you give us too much sugar and you give us too much caffeine and you make us crazy, and salt, our whole, what do you call that? Our whole inner being, our whole innards, they don't work correctly. And people know that, but they give it to us anyway.
Right.
So we don't know that. So
that
it's time
is
for
a
us to
different
know
podcast.
that.
Yeah.
Another
The
episode.
nutrition that leads you to crack.
Lordy.
Right?
Crack or crack?
This is amazing. This is so fun.
But to be clear, when I brought up Mary, she was the main woman in my life.
Mhm.
Did we all grow up Christian here?
Pretty much.
I did.
Christian, So I too grew up Catholic, like Bonnie, and so she, I had a picture of her that I always carried around in my book bag because I went to Catholic school from K through 4th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like an avid Bible reader as a child. No one told me to do it. I just did it.
Wow.
So and I don't know, like I loved everything about Mary. To me, she was the ultimate mother. Now that I'm older, I still think she's the ultimate, to be honest. I still have this reverence for her. But now I'm also aware of the fact that, human beings, they leave a lot of parts out of history, right? And in this case, men, because they are the ones who are, have been the scribes historically, right? So it's also like that question: was she actually a virgin? I don't know. I'm sure that there's historians that do know, but my point is, she's divine either way. That's why I re-brought her up, because I just want to make clear that I think even if she wasn't a virgin, she would still be as virtuous.
Yes.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we say Jesus the Virgin?
Right.
No, but that's about the birth. Supposedly there was no intercourse there with two humans to bring him in. That was by the overshadowing of God.
Right.
That's how Jesus was born according to the Bible.
None of the men in history were ever noted as virtuous because they were virgins.
No, but that's the whole point about what we're talking about here too, a little bit, because it's okay for a guy to go out and be a little rascal and do this, that, and the other. But if a girl goes out and does that, you're not a virgin when I marry you. What are you? What you been doing? So we're on a different, whole different level the way we're being expected to behave.
Yeah, because I feel like when people think of divinity, think of purity,
right?
And then purity is a tricky little word, because I think it's a cool word when you take the judgment out of it, but when you put that judgment in it, then it, to be unpure is to just be, I might as well spit on your, you know what I mean, like, so
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important for anybody that identifies as women, as a woman, or has female parts to like know that her worthiness has nothing to do with that, and her divinity and her purity has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Not being a virgin doesn't take anything away from your wholeness and your holiness.
That is so well put. I love it. Yeah, so well put.
Yeah.
And that's important. It's like really now we have to really build this self-love, because
Mhm.
there's so many places that us as women that we just don't have this self-love. We, the things that we do to get it, and we don't have to do anything to get it, because
Right.
we are divine, we are creators, we have this power, we have this divinity about us that nobody can take. And that's part of why this needs to be done too, so we can get in contact with that and say, F everything else, you guys, this is who we are. We good, we bad, we will love sex, we don't like sex, whatever. And that there's nothing wrong with that. That's like taking life and enjoying every morsel of it and not feeling guilty about doing that,
Relish.
Yes. This is great. Oh my goodness. Excellent. Thank you so much, ladies. This was great. I had an amazing time. Okay, so we got 5 parts to this. We want you to come back and join us and go on this journey with us. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
I wanted to say it.
Where's the music?